Okay, I have another GVM 650B Pro unit for the re-evaluation. GVM sent it for the retest because I asked them to. I have to ship it back at my expense, so it is a rental for about 4 weeks. If you are new to my channel, the story is that half a year ago I bought a GVM 600B Pro with my own money and it was not performing as promised in the specs. So my light was sent back to Amazon and during the process I lost around $80 due to exchange rates. Not Amazon or GVM fault, just my greedy bank. I wanted to retest this light mostly to see if that was a problem with just one unit or it is just that GVM quality is not that great. Why? Because I'm thinking about buying their new 1200B or 1200C fixture when it hits the market. So I want to be sure I can trust GVM quality. But it actually looks like they probably scrapped their 1200B version bicolor because it was listed on their page at $34.99 and Aputure just released killer 1200X at $29.99. So 1200B just disappeared from GVM webpage, but seems 1200C, which is RGBWW, is still in the game, so it is worth checking this one again. When I got this unit, the first thing I did was to test it with my Sekonic L-858D, and the luminosity readings are actually lower than my previous unit. I was really surprised, but since I have Sekonic C800 now, I immediately used it to test the unit with it. And to my surprise, readings with C800 are much higher. So 858D shows 12,000 lux at 1 meter at 5600 Kelvin, while C800 shows 18,300 lux at the same settings. All readings without the reflector. For 3200 Kelvin, 858D shows 9,000 lux and C800 shows 16,400 lux. I've done each reading several times to be 100% sure it's valid. Same results every time. So I immediately contacted Sekonic because it's weird that two of their high-end meters are showing totally different readings. And Sekonic answered within 24 hours with this email. By the way, Sekonic seems to have the best customer support I ever experienced. Every time I contacted them, even pre-sales, they responded within 24 hours and their response is always so on point that I never had any additional questions. Anyway, what they said is that 858D is not that accurate at luminosity readings. It has plus minus 15% accuracy and also rounds up the readings to only first two leading digits. Also, it does not read the whole spectrum. It is more suited for flashes. So its luminosity readings can be highly off. C800 on the other hand has plus minus 7.5% accuracy at high values above 3000 lux and 5% accuracy up to 3K lux. It also reads the whole spectrum, so the summary is C800 is much more accurate in luminosity readings of LED lights than 858D. But the thing is that for any of my other lights, readings of both meters are really in line. Examples on the screen so you can see yourself. It seems that 858D has some problems measuring lights with warmer CCTs. So differences in the examples are less than 10% and every light I've tested with both of the meters are within this 10%. But for GVM 650B Pro, the difference is 34% at 5600 Kelvin and 45% at 3200 Kelvin. If we assume that C800 readings are 100% real and accurate. It's kinda fishy. I guess even if we assume both meters are off, and we can trust them, we can always trust the camera. So the easiest test is to use the monitor with EL zones to see the readings of the S-Log3 footage in the real time. So I've used Monitor Plus Pro application that can wirelessly display my Sony camera feed and can apply the EL zones in real time. I recorded the screen of the tablet to have the evidence. Ninja V also displays EL zones, but you cannot record EL zones overlay in the device, unfortunately. So I've just set up a scene with a window in the background and use 6 and 7 ND stops for proper exposure. I have each light with 90 cm softbox around 60 cm from my face and recorded sample footage plus EL zones overlay from Monitor Plus application. The result is that 650B Pro brightness is definitely lower than Aputure 600D. Based on EL zones, it is like 1/3 to half of the stop lower. It is probably not as bad as I thought it would be, so C800 readings are closer to the truth than 858D. And GVM G300 has even lower output in the real-world scenario, even though the bare light seems to generate a bit more than GVM, like 5% more output in CCT max mode. It is probably because its COB is recessed, so it bounces differently off of the reflective material inside of the softbox. For GVM 650B Pro, manufacturer spec says today it has 22,200 lux at 5600 Kelvin, while Aputure claims actually 22,150 lux, which is 50 lux less. Of course, in this scenario, the difference might be due to the different shape of the COB2, and the softbox I used is Aputure, so might be optimized for 600D. But I guess this experiment and measurements from C800 prove that the output is lower than promised, but not as much as I thought it would be. So it's a plus. The scenario I used to demonstrate this is kinda unlikely because you won't keep the light so close to your talent usually. Look how bad the light fall-off is. So 600B Pro would probably not be able to expose it properly if the softbox is farther away. But you can always swap the diffusion to 1 stop instead of 2 stops used, and or use less ND stops. But it's worth knowing what is the real output with a softbox too. I will probably post the whole experiment as separate video later, but the conclusion is 600B Pro definitely has a smaller output at 100% than Aputure 600D, and GVM G300 even in CCT max mode has lower output than GVM. But since I have Sekonic C800, I used it also to check the parameters of the light, and here the findings are not that great. I took these readings a few times to be 100% sure they are accurate. My main problem is that CCT shifts really bad when you adjust the brightness. So at 150 and 25% it is fine, off by maximum 170 Kelvin, but at 10, 5 and 1% it is totally off, up to 1300 Kelvin from set 5600 Kelvin. Same story for tungsten, 3200 Kelvin, but it shifts to the warmer CCT now, and the shift is not that bad as in daylight mode, up to 520 Kelvin. So this light seems to have CCT calibrated for the higher output, and for lower it's not that great, or it's even terrible at daylight. I've searched for the new firmware to see if this is fixed, but there is no newer firmware, unfortunately. I guess that's the reason they haven't sent this light to ND Lock from Gaffer and Gear. This also impacts the TM30 and SSI results at lower intensities. Fidelity drops to 93 for TM30 and SSI drops to 70 for daylight, while is 75 at 100%. For tungsten is not that bad since color fidelity is between 96 and 99 and SSI is between 84 and 87. A really good result actually. So if you want to use your bicolor light in the whole range of intensity, 600B Pro does not seem like a choice for you. But if you think you will use it at 25% power or more, then you are good to go. Sure, you can try to dial proper CCT using a spectrometer, but C800 is like $1,000 when it's on sale, so it is probably easier to get the light which is calibrated better within the whole intensity range. Anyway, GVM 600B Pro still have some pros compared to the competition. The look. Definitely GVM looks most professional of all offerings I know on the market in that price range and power range. Molus B500 and G300 both look a bit like toys. 600B Pro is big and has the same effect as big camera effect. The bigger the camera, the better the videographer in eyes of 90% of clients. Same for the lights. I wish I had GVM Molus B500 to compare to this light, but actually GVM finished their marketing campaign for B500, so they were not willing to send it. What a shame. Does the retest make me really confident in 1200C quality from GVM? Not really, but since 1200 fixtures will probably have a new light engine, it might be better. So if GVM is willing to send it for testing before I buy it, I will gladly accept the offer. Is 650B Pro really bad? It's not great, but if you know what you are buying, you can work with it, especially at intensities of 25% or more. You have to be aware also that it might not work for every scenario against the sun. But other than that, the build quality is really good and it is very quiet. I tested this unit with a sound meter too, and it was never louder than 35 decibels at 1 meter from the light and ballast after 60 minutes of intensive testing at 100%. And there is not much competition in that price range. I know GVM Molus B500 has 19,200 lux at 5600 Kelvin, but I never tested the light, so I'm not sure how true it is and I'm not sure how loud it is. 600B Pro is $750 currently on Amazon. It is 150 off, which is exactly the same price as Molus B500. Nunlight Forza 720B and Godox M600BI are $1,700, so almost 1K more. Aputure 600X is 2K USD, although it has 10% lower output than what I measured with GVM 650B Pro. I guess you have to double the price to have more consistent light. I hope this helps you make a more informed purchase decision. Some affiliate links are in the description below, and cheers mate!